Welcome to Pario magazine, where I chat with individuals who have a desire to create. Today, I'm joined by the creator of the movie and gaming YouTube channel, 616 Entertainment. Welcome to Pario magazine, Ian Scherer.
Very cool to be here. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So we're here today to chat about your journey with YouTube and in particular building 616 Entertainment. Before we dive into that though, do you want to give our audience a brief introduction as to who Ian is away from the camera and the editing bay?
Sure. I am just somebody who always kind of wanted to be in this field. You know, when I was like 12 years old, a couple buddies of mine we grabbed a camera and we were like, let's make a movie. And we made what we called like our Halloween movie. One of us had a Michael Myers mask, the other had a camera, and we just made the worst movie you've ever seen. And everybody kind of like grew up and grew out of it. And as I got older, I kept going like, no, I want to keep doing this. So I don't make Halloween movies anymore, but now I'll make videos about Halloween movies.
Mhm. How are you feeling ahead of the release of Halloween Ends?
I'm looking forward to it. I hope they stick the landing, and I hope that the title of the movie is honest. I think that it has to end. It's been almost 45 years. Wrap it up.
Yep, totally agree. So you mentioned sort of finding the passion for video and creating videos as a 12-year-old. What then pushed you to go down this YouTube path rather than potentially following more of the filmmaking path?
I guess when it started, when I first made the YouTube channel in 2007, at the time it still kind of was making like short movies with my friends. And then as things progressed, I kind of took influences from other people and kind of adjusted what I did. So instead of coming up with the dumbest idea ever and filming it with a couple friends, I would see guys like Colin Moriarty or Greg Miller sit down and have a conversation amongst friends. And I would see how entertaining it was when they did it. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's something here. And I know a lot of interesting people. So it kind of shifted towards that. And I did that for years, didn't really gain any traction with it. And then I eventually switched over to doing like in-depth retrospectives on some of my favorite games and movies. And that's where I first found a little bit of success and found an audience of my own.
Okay. And you mentioned the first video was uploaded in 2007.
Yes.
Was that under the 616 Entertainment banner, or did you begin with another channel and then when you revamped the style of programming, shift over to this channel?
It was always 616 Entertainment, and it was a little piece of trivia. Not that anybody would care, but the first video was called 332 Java because my buddy Tim Ewers and I shot it at 3:32 in the morning, and it made no sense whatsoever. It was just a guy bumbling around his house looking for some drink that he called Java. And eventually he found it and he slammed the whole bottle of it, and that was it. And if that sounds horrible, it's because it was, because we were like 15 or 16 years old just entertaining ourselves. But that one's lost to time. I used some copyrighted music, and back in the day YouTube would just kill that shit. So
Yep. So now that with 616 Entertainment, you're focusing on those retrospective deep dives and sort of focusing on wrestling games and movies, where did those passions come from?
those are like the videos that I do now, like the history of Halloween or Triangle X Squared Circle, which is my wrestling game retrospective series. That's kind of what I always wanted to do. I just didn't know if I'd like be any good at it, and that takes a lot more skill than just telling your friend like, now do this. So it was my biggest inspiration for branching out into that was I'm a big fan of James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd. And a long time ago, he did like a 4-part Castlevania series that it was like, here's what Castlevania was like growing up for me. And as I got older, my history with it. And eventually in 2017, I had thought about this for a long time, and I was like, I always wanted to make a series like that that meant as much to me as Castlevania did to James. And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, the WWE SmackDown games were like my main thing growing up. So I put together the history of SmackDown, and that was like my first favorite thing that I did. And I was like, I'm just going to keep doing these. And so that's how I found the groove, I guess.
I guess covering things that you love makes this less of a job and more of just a fun thing that also pays the bills.
Exactly. It's so much more important to make sure you're covering things that you actually enjoy. Yeah, 100%.
And you've mentioned a few different YouTube and podcast personalities. How important do you think it is for aspiring YouTubers to look at what is successful and try to spin it and take it in their own direction?
I think that's like the perfect fuel, or if it's not the fuel, it could be the match that ignites the fuel that you already have. So there were different inspirations over the years that I would be like, I would like to try my version of that. And sometimes it works out, sometimes you get tired of it, but then other times you're like, oh, this is my lane, this is what I want to do. And for me, I feel like I found what I'm supposed to be doing, which feels good.
Okay. And with the wrestling games, how excited are you for AEW to arrive on the market? And then we'll have the WWE games, the AEW games, Fire Pro Wrestling, and a bunch of other sort of indie ones as well.
Yeah, everything else that's popping up. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I have seen like the gameplay snippets that they've shown off, and I'm not super hyped yet, but I'm also not completely writing it off. I would love to get my hands on it and really experience it before I judge it. I'm a guy who doesn't pre-order things. I want to see it out in the wild. I want to hear what people I trust think about it and go from there. But if they accomplish 50% of what they're trying to accomplish, I think at the very least we're going to have a fun game. So looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
I'm totally on the same page. I'm not going to pre-order it in case there
Mhm.
are a bunch of bugs in it, but from the clips we've seen, I think the gameplay looks really fun. The little side elements, they look a bit wacky, but I think the actual wrestling gameplay looks super fun.
Yeah, I'm on board.
And now that you have grown this channel to a substantial presence on YouTube with almost 94,000 followers and subscribers, what has been the hardest aspect of this journey?
Uh, Kind of just trying to predict what's going to be a hit and what's totally just going to bomb and flop and fail. Like the it was the history of Halloween was the first time I ever like tried to actually catch the algorithm wave. I was like, you know what? Halloween's going to be in the news and all that, and I went after it, and it worked. It worked out. It was a success. And then going into this year, 2022, I knew God of War Ragnarok was coming, and I was, you know what? Instead of just going for something I really want to do, I'm gonna try and catch that algorithm wave, which I do love God of War. Don't get me wrong, but the timing was right to do it. And so I'm doing the history of God of War this year, and it's just eating shit. Like, to be honest, like it's you know the history of Halloween part 1 is closing in on like 200,000 views. My Mortal Kombat series, which I was so lucky on, they announced Mortal Kombat 11 like the day after I finished. That one just broke 2 million views.
Oh, wow.
My history of God of War series, of the 4 parts so far combined, it's probably under 30,000.
Oh,
So I'm super proud of it, and I hope someday they catch on, because I think they stand up to the other stuff that I've done, but it's like, fuck, man. Like, this is just not catching the wave at all for whatever reason.
is that a shock when something like that happens, when you sort of go into it thinking, oh, this will work for sure with this new product coming out, this will blow up, but sometimes it just dies?
It is a shock because like the other ones that I had done, like I in 2019, I did the history of WCW video games, which that was for people who don't know, was a wrestling company who hasn't been around since 2001. But I was like, fuck it, this is what I wanted to, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. And that did very well. And then God of War, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. The time is right. And maybe the time is right and I'm not. I don't know. But
Maybe
it's a crapshoot.
maybe once Ragnarok hits, we'll sort of get new fans coming in and wanting to go back and find out about the history of it, and
Yeah,
maybe it'll take off with a late tail rather than right off the start.
I would take it. But I also feel like you have to own your failures just as much as you like are proud of your achievements. So my Halloween stuff last year, I'm like, oh shit, this caught on. Very cool. And then the God of War one this year, it's like, fuck, well, all right, let's regroup. you know, there's nobody to blame. I can't stand when people are just like, oh, my audience didn't show up. It's like, fuck you, man. You it's just sometimes you get a hit, sometimes you don't. So I hope people watch him eventually. It'll be awesome.
Are they some of the biggest tips that you have for aspiring YouTubers to not just throw out random pieces of content, like look ahead, plan out, and then, yeah, if something hits, be happy and celebrate that. But if it doesn't, go back and sort of work out why it's not working.
Yeah, for sure. And the planning out where you're going to go, I think is important because if you put something out, like I do all of my history ofs in 5 parts and I do 1 part a month. And then somewhere down the line, I'll jam them all together and release it as like the full movie. And for whatever reason, these super long full movie versions are usually the one that gets the most views. You would think people would see the history of Halloween and it's 4.5 hours long and they go, I don't have time for that.
Mhm.
But it's doing really well. And the Mortal Kombat one was kind of the same. But the reason it's important to plan it out is like if you drop a part 1 and it does really well, it's like shit, I got 4 more parts that are coming out. So you know what your roadmap is going to look like. You don't want to stay too married to it. You know, you don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to spend this whole year doing this. If you get a couple months in and there's no traction, you're allowed to try something else. you know, so maybe I should have taken my own advice with my God of War series. You never know.
And when you are doing those 5-part retrospectives, are you creating them all 5 parts before you release the first one, or is it a continual, gradual production?
I have done that in the past. I want to say I had the first 4 parts of the SmackDown series done before I released the first one. But usually I'll do one at a time. Like maybe I'll have part 1 done and I'm like halfway finished with part 2 by the time the first one drops. But I do so much more now. I do like the weekly shows, which are like Let's Play style. That's just more to like keep stuff on the channel because people like to watch it. And who I am when I'm playing a game compared to who I am when I'm actually like writing the script are different. And I think the hardcores who like to watch both, they don't want to lose one or the other. So I try to keep it constantly populated. But yeah, I like to do for the most part just one at a time now. And I always make sure I have enough time carved out to do it.
Okay. And you've built a pretty loyal fan base, many of whom are now supporting via Patreon. How special does it feel to have such a loyal fan base that will support you in that way?
That is like unbelievable. I want to say it's awesome because it's like I never thought I would have anything like that. Like that was always the dream. But it's also just like unbelievable because if those people weren't there supporting me on Patreon, I can't do this anymore. I got to go do something else, you know? And I've had other jobs, some of which I liked, some of which I didn't like, but in this moment right now, for the past couple years, I'm living my dream. And I said to one of my buddies, we were at the movies last year. We might have been seeing Halloween Kills, as topical as that is.
Mhm.
But I my one friend who I hadn't seen in a while was like, "Are you still doing your YouTube thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's I was thinking the other day, it's kind of weird. I'm kind of living my dream. And I guess part of my dream is to not be rich, but I'll take the work aspect of it." So it's like I'm doing it at a level. I live within my means, so everything's all well and good. But you know, someday maybe it'll be huge. You never know. But if it never is, I'm totally happy with things the way they are.
How was that moment when you realized I can actually go full time with this and just go this route?
It was. I think it took a while to set in because I had been working at the same place for almost 10 years. And then the pandemic hit and I left that job. So for basically all of 2020, I was like, okay, I can get by doing my YouTube stuff while the pandemic cools down, because I have a dog shit immune system as it is, and if I got it really bad, that wouldn't be cool. And I was like, I will recalibrate once this all clears up. And as I kept doing what I was doing, it kept growing and growing, so I could get more and more comfortable just doing this as a job. And I was like, oh shit, I'm just gonna keep doing this. And if the wheels fall off someday and I have to go do something else, that's fine. That's life. But for right now, it's I'm getting enough support that I can live my dream, which is awesome.
Do you think sometimes that's just an important part of being a creator, to get to that point where you realize I can live comfortably off this? If I go full bore and focus all my attention on this, I can grow this exponentially.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it is just about commitment, you know, and you can definitely fall into a trap of looking at things unrealistically and being like, well, if I commit, I can make this happen. And sometimes it's just not in the cards. It's not just about your work ethic. It's also about luck. It's about circumstances. It's about all these things. Like, uh, people will sometimes go way back on my YouTube channel to a video from like 2010. And you're like, why does this only have like 50 views? And I'm like, dude, I ran this channel for 10 years for like 20 people.
Mhm.
You know, it wasn't until the history of Mortal Kombat in 2018 that I got so lucky that the algorithm caught me that anybody watched at all. I did this for 10 years just because I love doing it. So there's you can't go into it thinking like, you know, someday I'll make it. It's some people will, some people won't. So
And you're, as we mentioned, you're at 93.9 thousand subscribers at the moment, approaching the 100K mark. Do you have a celebration planned for when you hit that milestone?
I don't know exactly what it will be, but to kind of go along with the last question about like working hard and committing, I have been saying for probably 3 years now, like this is the year we hit 100,000. So that just goes to show, like, you know, you might have like a really good month and then a month where it's like, oh fuck, nothing's happening here, and then you'll have a nice stretch. It's totally a crapshoot. It's not all work ethic, but when I hit 100,000, it's not like I have a project in mind, like, okay, now I'm gonna do this. I am literally gonna take that silver plaque when it shows up. I'm gonna put it on my wall and I'm gonna feel like I did it. You know, like some people would feel like they did it when they're a millionaire or they have a mansion. That's never gonna happen to me. I
Mhm.
just want that little silver thing that I can go, I did that shit.
Very nice. And then just a little fun question. As an AEW fan,
Mhm.
MJF is on the prowl for the world title. When are you predicting that he captures that title?
It's that's a hard question to answer. I guess I will use a little bit of a cop out and say he is going to win it.
Mhm.
But one of my favorite parts about AEW is that I really very rarely know what they're going to do. And that's one of the things that has made me fall out of love with wrestling a couple times over the years, is like, you know, certain times on certain shows you'll watch and you know what's going to happen on the entire card, top to bottom. And AEW, I love it so much because there will be a thing and I'll text my buddy. It's like, well, clearly because they did that, this is going to happen. And then it doesn't. And I don't feel like a goof. I actually feel like, oh shit, they got me. All right.
Mhm.
This is why I love this. So I do think he's going to win it, but I have no idea when. And that's my favorite part about it.
Yep. For me, I think we've got the title match in Cleveland coming up very soon. I feel like that could be a potential place where he'll get booed out of the building if he steals
Mhm.
the title from Moxley on that night.
Which MJF would revel in. And
Mhm.
we also have that detail that it's like, I guess Tony Khan said that the chip isn't exactly like the Money in the Bank where he can just show up and go for a pin. I guess Tony Khan was like, whenever he wants to cash it in, I will sanction the match. So is there going to be a thing about him trying to use it, or who knows? That's, it adds another wrinkle of mystery to it.
Yes. So then finally, aside from the YouTube channel itself, where is the best place for people to support you and track your creative journey moving forward?
Sure. You said besides YouTube, but that's actually what I'll point to first, because the best way to support me is patreon.com/616entertainment. But just go to the YouTube channel first. And if you like what you see, then consider heading over to the Patreon. I feel like it's a mistake to lead with your Patreon. I want people to watch stuff. Watch it for a month if you want to. And then if you really like it, be like, all right, I'll throw them a couple bucks a month. But that's just an interesting thing, is it's like almost 94,000 subscribers and I have like a couple hundred patrons. Like the bleed over is so much smaller than people expect it to be, which is why I appreciate every single one of those patrons so much, that it's like, jump on board if you're really with me, and I appreciate it to death. So check out the YouTube channel first, go from there.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, and good luck with the push to 100.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was very cool.